So it seems that yesterday Hasbro put the word out that all G.I. Joe Classified series sales in the UK and the EU were going to be Hasbro Pulse exclusives from this point forward. I'm not really one for YouTube drama about action figure collecting, but I am a UK-based collector. I am in love with the G.I. Joe Classified series line, and I wanted to join the conversation on this point because it's landed close to home. So stick around, let's have a bit of a chat about what was announced, why we think it may have happened, what the upshot is for collectors like me, and a bit of a sense of what's being talked about around and about in the UK community. So give back in 5 seconds, folks. So let's start by just sort of establishing what is actually going on here. Yesterday afternoon, a screen grab of an Instagram post by In Demand Toys, I think it was Instagram, might have been Twitter, but In Demand Toys, very well-known, independent action figure, adult toy retailer here in the United Kingdom, a store I've shopped with many, many times myself in the past, started doing the rounds on the socials in the sort of UK-based G.I. Joe Classified fan groups. I myself saw it in a Discord group that I belong to, but it also then very quickly picked up pace in the UK G.I. Joe Classified series collectors page on Facebook. That post disappeared, I believe. I've not confirmed it for myself, but then shortly afterwards, a tweet by Emily over at G.I. Joe Classified, the marketing manager on the G.I. Joe Classified team at Hasbro, posted this tweet confirming that it was the case, that G.I. Joe Classified series sales in the United Kingdom and EU were going to be Hasbro Pulse exclusives from that point forward. This was then further confirmed by a couple of other UK-based independent retailers who made social media posts of their own. Immediately, the first instinct was questions, and one of the high priority questions was folks wanting to know what's going to happen with G.I. Joe Classified series pre-orders that I currently have with these retailers, and that was responded to very quickly by those retailers to say anything up to this point you've ordered with us is in the bag, it's from this point forward. Creating an assumption that this means any new announcements, any pre-order releases that come in the Hasbro PulseCon next weekend are going to be only available for UK and EU folks through Hasbro Pulse. So naturally, as this picked up momentum and the news started to spread across the UK-based forums and social media pages and such like, I can only speak to the UK. I don't know if the sentiment is the same in other European territories, but as this picked up pace, the question of why are Hasbro doing this and what does it actually mean started to be debated and discussed. For many in the community here in the UK, the instinct was to immediately assume that this is a clear-cut case of profiteering by Hasbro in order to monopolise the line and keep all the cash for themselves. The assumption that there is an accountant somewhere in Hasbro who's looking at a spreadsheet and saying, wow, look at how many units we're doing at wholesale price to independent retailers compared to how many units we're doing direct to consumer through our own retail channels. We're losing money here. Let's cut that section of the access off so that they can only get these figures through us, and we'll make the full retail profit margin rather than the wholesale profit margin. We don't know that for sure. Emily's tweet, while confirming that what we've heard is true, is only superficially transparent in that sense, because what it didn't do is give us any explanation as to what the decision-making process was around this. But of course, there is a bit of a sour taste around Hasbro at the moment. Certainly collectors who collect Marvel Legends and Star Wars Black Series, in addition to G.I. Joe Classified, are feeling very challenged by the lines at the moment when we look at price increases, when we look at quality control, the value against those price increases in terms of what we're actually getting from our product, and other things like exclusive or prestige figure releases that aren't really any more exclusive or prestige than the mainline release, but they're slapping a larger price tag on it, for example. So there's an assumption there that it's profiteering, that it's all about the greed, Hasbro greed, that it is a short-term fix for short-term gain to fill the coffers in the Hasbro bank account. And behaviour would indicate that that may be the case. But there was also some debate and discussion suggesting that as they expand the Hasbro Pulse offer into more territories across Europe, Right now, it's just the UK and Germany, I believe, that you can use Hasbro Pulse in, but they're expanding into Spain, Italy. I forget the list, but I think there's 5 other territories they're expanding into. This is about supply chain issues and about controlling incoming stock into the European region so that they can better satisfy customer demand directly through themselves across all those territories. Does that mean that availability for areas like the UK and Germany that have been somewhat used to being able to get their hands around this stuff will be impacted? Time will tell. But there was a little bit of a more measured view because, let's face facts, we know that Hasbro Pulse, their supply chain situation is upside down, back to front and all over the place. It's absolutely bobbins. So maybe, maybe not. Who knows? Oh, something else. I just realised as I finished up recording that bit on the sofa just then that I meant to mention. There was also a little bit of further speculation around whether this is a sign of things to come. In terms of what does this mean for Hasbro adult toy collectors? Is this indicating a movement towards making all their lines exclusive and available through their own direct-to-consumer channels? That may or may not be the case. Now, what we do know is G.I. Joe Classified is obviously an intellectual property that Hasbro own themselves, so they have exclusive control to do with it as they see fit. Whereas your Marvel Legends, your Star Wars Black Series, there's contractual obligations that they must be meeting with regards to Disney. The big Disney beast that's behind those intellectual properties. So while they could perhaps make a move of this nature with an IP that they own themselves, there is less likely. I mean, Disney are not, at the very least, are not going to want their lines not being available through, for example, Disney stores. So does that mean, though, that we need to keep half an eye out on what's going on with Power Rangers and Transformers? Maybe, maybe not. We don't know. It's all speculation at this stage, but it's certainly a concern that I saw knocking around in the debate and discussion yesterday afternoon around what could this possibly mean. Is it a sign of things to come? So, yeah, time will tell. Keep fingers crossed, folks. So as far as the community and I go on this, I think there's generally a broad consensus, at least at what I've seen publicly put out there. One thing I will note is that however toxic action figure collecting becomes in the social media space, we are so traditionally British and polite about it. It was angry, but in that British kind of way, which I actually quite adored. But there was someone I saw make a post, someone I respect a great deal, an individual who I think it was very important to the G.I. Joe Classified series UK collectors community over here, had a big part to play in helping me get into the line. And I don't even know him personally, this was just through a social media relationship. And to paraphrase them, they said that this is just yet another example of Hasbro making what is supposed to be a fun hobby stressful. And they went on to elaborate and explain that this is further introducing concerns about what if this figure that I really want it goes on sale on pre-order at 6 p.m. on a Friday night, and I'm still in work. I'm working then, and I'm going to miss those vital first 5 minutes. And by the time I get home and get online, it's going to be sold out. And so stock level concerns and price concerns enter into the story. And I get that. I'm just a massive man-child who wants nostalgia and a little bit of childlike wonder in my life still as a 40-year-old employed father, and all the stresses in normal life that brings. Taking photos of my little plastic toys is just a little escape. It's a little bit of childlike wonder for me. So I get that point of view, and I respect their point of view because they're a big part of the collector scene over here for G.I. Joe Classified series. And they're right, of course, they're right. There was some suggestion that the independent retailers are not restricted in terms of import stock, and I know that many of us would be willing to pay £1 or £2 extra to continue using them through import stock, but how sustainable is that? How realistic is that? Well, time will tell. How much products can they actually bring in as import stock? Worldwide economics right now are challenging that just alone, let alone the practicalities of the supply chain situation. So time will tell, but I'm not sure that's the solution. That that we think it might be. And that pains a lot of us, because I prefer to use the independent retailers. I'd be lying if I said I hadn't used Hasbro Pulse. I mean, any collector over here in Europe will know that when there are exclusive lines released in North America, on like with Target, for example, Hasbro Pulse has sometimes been the only place you can get some of these exclusive figures here in the United Kingdom. So I'd be lying if I said I hadn't used them, but I do prefer the independent retailers. It's just warmer. You know, the customer communication and level of service is just warmer and more friendly, and it feels less corporate. If you have a problem with one of your figures, they're more understanding, because they kind of get us as the collector on the other side more. And I've found that I've had some really smooth experiences when I've had some challenges with figures in the past, and I just don't feel like I get that from Hasbro Pulse. It's also about choice and options. One personal challenge that I have is I don't like pre-ordering unless I can pay for it up front. I'm not a fan of this getting an invoice when something is delivered. And with the supply chain situation being the way that it is right now, I don't like that it's surprising as well. That I'm told a figure's due in, 1st of March 2023, and then I get an email telling me it's arriving on the 3rd of October. And I'm like, well, that's 6 months ahead of when I can budget for that. Whereas with the independent retailers, I can pay up front, or I can lay down partial payments. They've got more choice and more options around that. Whereas Hasbro Pulse just like springing emails on me saying, time to pay up. And that's just not attractive to me. And independent retailers can be more flexible in terms of the range of options they offer there. And I kind of don't mind an independent retailer having my cash in the bank, helping them out right now before having the product in hand. That's part of the symbiotic relationship that works for me. It's not only that though, you've got more choice and options when it comes to shipping, packaging, all these kinds of stuff that Hasbro Pulse just don't offer. They just don't offer. They take a more corporate perspective on the way they deliver direct to consumer. And that's just not, it's just not good enough, really. It's just not good enough. Now, this is no different, I suppose, to any other argument throughout history when it comes to comparing why you might like to go to mom and pop store on the corner rather than going to the big supermarket or whatever, going to the independent rather than going to the big corporation. So it doesn't change in that respect, but I just think it's very tone deaf. I don't know, Hasbro not aware? Do they not know what's going on? I don't know. But it does. I'm very disappointed, and it pains me to think that I'm either going to have to start increasing my investment in the collection, because I'm going to now start paying import prices, which isn't too much of a problem because I do want to help the independent retailers out. But it is a concern when there's a cost of living crisis going on. And it does disappoint me and concern me that, I don't know, just the tone of the way they've done it just doesn't feel right, does it? It just doesn't feel right. So that's my view on it. Let me know in the comments down below if you agree. So what now? That's the question. And to be honest, frankly, not a lot. I've noticed today is Saturday as I'm recording this. You'll probably been aware that I've done it quick and dirty using my phone rather than the full rig. But we've all had our moan, and chatter has kind of quietened down a bit today through Saturday. So we've had our whinge, and that's kind of the end of that. It is what it is. We've certainly not got any power or control over it, so we have to accept that it's about just influencing it somehow now. And some have fed back to Hasbro and responded to Emily's tweet and such like. But the idea of voting with our wallet is, of course, a much more complex and multi-layered kind of way of operating. And I don't know whether there is enough of us to mobilise in such a way that it would be noticeable. It's certainly my personal intention to support independent retailers as much as I can from here on in. I'm going to call it out. There's two in particular that I use very heavily, Comics and Cocktails and In Demand Toys. And of those two, Comics and Cocktails have been really good to me in the past. Really good to me in the past. They've really helped me out when I've had issues with figures, and I've had, very responsive to my emails and just really friendly and warm. And so those two in particular I plan on supporting. It may well be that just, I collect a lot of different stuff, so I might not be able to get my G.I. Joe classified through them, but I'll start reconfiguring my purchases of things that I might have ordinarily picked up on, say, Zavvi or Forbidden Planet or HMV, and start picking up with them. I don't know. That's something to consider. But it's certainly my intention to carry on supporting them. I already order import stock from in-demand toys. I think if any of you have watched my reviews on these videos, you'll notice I point out the little Hong Kong sticker on the back of the boxes in those instances when I've had them in. So behaviourally, that's not much of a change for me in particular. I'm just concerned about stocking levels, that's a sustainable way of proceeding. But yeah, in terms of what now, not a great deal. I think we've just got to keep making sure that we send carefully worded, well thought out emails and letters into Hasbro to let them know how we're feeling, and making it a bit less of kind of toxic outbursts online, you know. And as I said right at the top of this video, I'm not one for YouTube drama. It was just that this particular piece of news landed very close to home for me. So yeah, there we go. Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. You know, unless you're a toxic troll, then move on, please. I'm not interested in that. But that's, yeah, there you go. That's the update. That's where we're at. So you now know, at the conclusion of this video, what was announced, speculation about why it was announced and what it might mean, and a bit of a perspective from the UK community, me in particular, my own view around the whole thing. So there we go. All right, folks. Well, I've been Chris. This is MoDXtra Games and Collectibles. I hope you enjoyed something a little bit different from the channel today. I promise I'm just going to go back to making it all about reviewing the toys and opening trading cards and looking at comic books again from here on in. If you enjoyed what you saw today, please do take a moment to subscribe to the channel. Also give me a like. It just lets me know that I'm going in the right direction and doing the right sort of thing. But I'll thank you for watching and wish you a very good day.